Hi. I want to do a brief video on one word in Spinoza's Ethics, and that word is meretricious. Okay, so the reason I want to do this word is because I've used it and kept it to the original Latin in my version of the Ethics that I've recently produced. The reason is that meretricious has many, many meanings. And if you take it, I guess, out of context, if you like, if you use something like the Elwes version or the Curly version, you'll see that instead of using the word meretricious, excuse me, I'm just looking at this. Yeah, this is the Curly version. They use something different. Okay, so I'll go into that in a minute. But where we're looking at the appendix to part 4 on number 19, where he says, moreover, meretricious love, that is the desire for procreation that arises from external form. And then he continues, but I'm going to leave it there. So what does he mean by meretricious love? Well, if you look up meretricious in the dictionary, it means attracting attention in a vulgar manner, plausible but false or insincere, speculous, or of relating to prostitutes or prostitution. Now, okay, so I'm going to go to the Curly version, which is the one I've been using with my students up till basically writing one of my own. And in the Curly version, for the same thing, I'm just finding it now. Where are we? You can see I haven't prepared, because that's not my nature. In the Curly version, it says something different. So I'm just going to find it, which I'd already marked it. Okay, well, just let me get my glasses, because to read I need glasses. Here we go. Okay, so remember that my version says, moreover, meretricious love, that is the desire for procreation that arises from external form. But in the Curly version, he doesn't say that. What he says is a purely sensual love, moreover, that is a lust to procreate, which arises from external appearance. Okay, so we are talking about a purely sensual love, as opposed to what Spinoza was really talking about, which is insincere love. So if it's sensual, I wouldn't say that a sensual love was necessarily insincere, but he is talking about a vulgar love, attracting attention in a vulgar manner, plausible but false or insincere, or relating to prostitutes and prostitution. He's not talking about sensual at all here. So, in the other previous versions, I think they were right for their time. I think in their time that probably is what it meant. But that's not today. Today we would interpret meretricious as something completely different, which is why I have stuck to the original meretricious in my version of the Ethics. You'll find lots of anomalies that are different. I have to say that the Elwes version does use the word meretricious, but you can see how many versions I've got more. And that's why I decided to do this, because they all disagreed, and none of them was really translated properly into modern English. So I thought I would do that and make it easy for people to read by also adding an introduction which talks about the affects and bondage and freedom, reason versus virtue, and also has a glossary at the back, a glossary of terms, because the things that he talks about and the words he uses have specific meanings in modern day English. But in those days they might have meant something a little bit different. So thankfully I was able to translate from the raw Latin in which he wrote and didn't have to go through another intermediary, and translated it direct into modern English. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about the word meretricious and how it's used in the ethics. I'll be carrying on with part 3, proposition 3 next time. And it is just a brief look. You know, if you want to do in-depth work into Spinoza, into practical philosophy, and into understanding yourself, the world, and all the rest of it with clarity, then I'd rather you subscribe to Martin Butler's Patreon channel. And if you really want to go into the work of it, into the practice, then subscribe as I think it's called a practitioner. And that way you'll get 2 one-to-one sessions a month with a mentor. I've personally trained the mentors, and I know that they are good at what they do. You know, they are understanding. They also talk to me regularly, so you know I get to keep up with your update, if you like, which is it's very nice. It's very rewarding to see how far people come and how much understanding they get and how much pain they lose. You know, that's the point. Why else would you do it? Would you do it for entertainment? No, you do it if you're in pain. You want some something from it. So you know, that's why people do it. Anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough. I just wanted to introduce you to that one particular word. I mean, there are other words that I found, and I thought, that's what he means, because it's very difficult to understand unless you put everything into context. And with the previous translations, you have to put it in context to their time and their era, and also the religious, atmosphere at the time. You know, there are things that you can say today that you couldn't say then. There are words that we use today in very different contexts to the ways they'd use words in those days. For example, the word gay. You know, gay used to be something totally different. It used to be happy and bright. But, you know, I mean, to be honest, I found quite a few people who are gay, homosexual, quite happy and bright. So it's just terms and seasons, if you like. And, you know, I wrote this book for this season. Okay.